Good morning, everyone. I have an important question for you. Have you ever been afraid of something? Maybe you're afraid of the dark. Maybe you're afraid of insects. Maybe you're afraid of making mistakes in front of other people. Or maybe your fear is something no one else can see. Fear is something almost everyone experiences, even adults. But today, I don't want to talk about fear itself. I want to talk about what fear does to us. Before we continue, we need to actually understand what fear is. Fear is a natural emotion. It is our brain's way to protect us from danger. Sometimes the danger is real. Sometimes it only exists in our imaginations. Our hearts beat faster. Our hands become cold. Our brains start thinking too much. Fear prepares us to react. And fear can also make us do very surprising things. That reminds me of a funny story. There once was a man named Arthur who was absolutely terrified of mice. I don't just mean a little terrified. I mean stand on a chair and scream terrified. The problem was that Arthur lived on a farm, and farms usually have mice everywhere. To avoid them, Arthur always made his sisters do all of the barn chores, while he stayed safely away in the dark corners of the farm. One evening, however, Arthur's sisters were busy, so he had to feed the souls by himself. Now, the corn crib where the animal food was stored was dark, creepy, and dusty. The only light came from a hanging lantern near the door. Every shadow looked suspicious. Arthur slowly stepped inside. His hands were shaking. He kept looking around nervously, convinced that an army would jump out and attack him. Finally, he reached his hand into the pile of corn. Then something small ran across his fingers. He exploded into panic. He jumped backward so fast that he almost knocked down the lantern. He started grabbing a broom and started swinging it wildly in every direction like he was fighting invincible enemies. He kept shouting while sweeping the floor than anyone had ever swept before. A few minutes later, Arthur's sisters came back to the shed and froze in confusion. The souls were eating happily. The shed, it had been cleaner than it had been in years. And Arthur, he was standing on top of a wooden beam, shaking with fear, holding a broom like he was a warrior defending a castle. The funniest part is that Arthur accidentally finished a whole week's worth of chores in just a few minutes. That made me realize something. Fear creates energy. When we're afraid, our brain tells us that we need to act immediately. Sometimes that action helps us survive. Work harder, move faster, and think more carefully. But sometimes fear can also confuse us. Sometimes fear makes us search for the perfect thing to do. Have you ever experienced that? Maybe you're afraid of making mistakes during a test, so you keep overthinking every answer. Or maybe you want to try something new, but your brain keeps asking yourself, what if I fail? What if I'm not good enough? So, it's like your brain keeps searching for the correct answer, the best decision, and the safest action. And that's why I call this, but That perfect answer doesn't exist. And that's why I called this speech searching for something that doesn't exist. Because fear often tricks us into believing we need to be perfect before taking action. But in reality, nobody is perfect. Not students, not teachers, not even adults. Sometimes we just need to take the first step even while feeling scared. Fear is not always an enemy. Sometimes fear is a signal. It tells us that something matters to us. People get nervous before performance because they care about doing well. People are afraid of failure because they care about their future. Even standing here on stage feels a little scary for me. Before the speech, my mind was full of questions. What if I forget my words? What if I make mistakes? What if everyone stares at me? But then I realized something. If I keep waiting for the perfect moment to completely feel fearless, I might never do anything at all. So instead of waiting for fear to disappear, try waiting, try learning for try learning to continue when fear is still there. Courage does not mean having no fear. Courage means continuing when fear is still there. And maybe that's the real power of fear. Fear can stop us, but fear can also push us to grow, to improve, and be stronger than before. So, the next time you feel afraid, ask yourself, is this fear protecting me? Or is it just making me search for something that doesn't exist?